The Benghazi stonewall goes on. The State Department preventing diplomatic security agents who were actually on the ground during the 2012 Benghazi terrorist attacks, preventing them from testifying before Congress. Here's a State Department witness today at the House Select Committee Benghazi hearing.
We at the State Department have concerns that the requested interviews will pose precisely such risks. We also want to avoid interfering with the Department of Justice's ongoing investigations and prosecutions.
Joining us now, the chairman of the Select Committee on Benghazi, Congressman Trey Gowdy. He also serves on the Judiciary Committee, the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Mr. Chairman, good to see you. And if you will, characterize that answer from the State Department, the Assistant Deputy Secretary of State, on the witnesses.
Well, Lou, thank you for having me on. That's just a rote boilerplate response that you get sometimes from the administration, that if you want to talk to a witness that's going to jeopardize their security or impact an ongoing prosecution. So the first thing you have to say is, look, Mr. State Department official, we have no interest in jeopardizing anyone's security. So we're not going to do that. You don't need to be concerned about the person's security. Secondarily, I know a little something about criminal prosecutions. The last thing we want to do is jeopardize our chances of getting a conviction against Katala. But the Department of Justice has been much easier to work with on this issue, Lou, than the State Department. So those are just two kind of boilerplate, always in the letter responses you get from the State Department, neither of which can withstand scrutiny.
A lot of people right now are just trying to collect themselves after you said the Justice Department was easier to work with than the State Department, at least in this instance. At the very same time, you're getting 15,000 documents dumped on you this week. Finally, a response, or is it simply a, if you will, a bit of a swat back from the administration?
Well, it's 15,000 documents that no committee of Congress has ever had access to, Lou. So when people tell you that all the questions in Benghazi have been answered and there's nothing left to see, then why are we just getting access to 15,000 documents that no other committee of Congress has had access to? And within those 15,000 documents, that's going to lead us to make additional requests, which says nothing of the witnesses that we have not talked to, that we need to talk to. So if you look at the House resolution, it says all policies, all decisions, all activities. The word all is incredibly comprehensive. That's what we were asked to do, and you cannot do that if you don't have access to every document and every witness. So I appreciate the 15,000. What I cannot tell you and your viewers, Lou, is 15,000 out of how many? How many more are we entitled to?
And the questions go on and the answers are not forthcoming, or if they, what few answers do find their way to your committee from this administration, it just usually introduces more questions. Where does this go? And you've talked about reaching out even to the former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. How far does this go? How energetic, how vigorous will the committee be in this?
Well, we have been vigilant and energetic. It's just been energetic behind closed doors, given the nature of some of the material we're dealing with. But, you know, Lou, we're going to have to talk to all the principal witnesses. You mentioned Secretary Clinton. There are others. I don't want to focus on her, but clearly you cannot have a definitive accounting of Benghazi without talking to the Secretary of State at the time. But before I can talk to Secretary of State Clinton, I need the State Department to provide us with the emails of all the seventh floor principals, all the documents, all the papers that any halfway decent lawyer would have to have before they wanted to question a witness. So we're ready to pick up the pace. The Democrats, ironically, who didn't want to form the committee, now want us to go at a quicker pace. We are more than happy to accommodate that request. So we're going to have
Elijah Cummings even wants Democrats participating, full and equal partners.
Well, I note the irony of voting against a committee, threatening not to participate in the committee, putting up an ask and answered website that says the committee doesn't need to do any work, and now he wants to be a full partner, and I welcome that. There's some really good questioners on the other side. What I'm not going to do is conclude that all the work has been done when I know for a fact that there are documents and witnesses that have not been talked to And I owe your viewers and my fellow citizens the most definitive final accounting on Benghazi. That's what we were asked to do, and that's what we're going to do, with or without their help.
And Congressman Gowdy, we've also watched what has transpired with the Attorney General of the United States being held in contempt of Congress on the issue of Fast and Furious. I mean, there are so many of these scandals that envelop the White House, to which they have managed to, the pejorative is stonewall, and to be somewhat, I think, crazily optimistic about it all from the other side, to say that they've managed to preserve the integrity of the executive branch. I mean, are we going to see resolution, or is this a conflict that will ultimately make its way simply to the ballot box and then at that time be resolved?
Well, I think in theory, things would take a detour to the courthouse before they would go to the ballot box. Now, when I say courthouse, there has been civil litigation that has resulted in additional documents both in Fast and Furious and in Benghazi. Remember, it was not Congress that got the Ben Rhodes memo, it was someone else. And what we're seeing with Fast and Furious is the Attorney General says that an email he sends to his wife is protected by executive privilege. So, you know, a judge can throw that out of court, but at some point our fellow citizens need to say, look, stop the politics. The legislative branch has the right to conduct oversight over the executive branch, and when you take 2.5 years to produce documents and try to just wait out the Congress, that's not the way this was designed. So as soon as my fellow citizens get as upset as you are about it, and as upset and frustrated as I am, regardless of which political party is in power, Lou, this could be a Republican administration. Congress is still entitled to the documents. So my branch is going to have to stand up for itself, and I hope we'll do that.
You know, I can't think of any analog in our history in which there was ever a question raised without resolution about what Congress is entitled to. But here we are, now well more than 2 years since the death of 4 Americans in Benghazi, and the burning and sacking of our consulate, the annex. It's really quite something. Is there a parallel in our history that has eluded us?
Well, I'm a lot older than you are, Lou, but even I can't think back to what that may have been, and you're a better student of history than I am. I can just tell you that in my brief time in Congress, it has always been with a Democrat administration, and it's always been with a Republican majority in the House trying to gain access to the information. And in the old days, Congress kind of stood up for itself, and they asserted the right of the branch to have access to information. Nowadays, if your team is in power in the White House, you have no interest in forcing them to comply with congressional requests. So I hope I live long enough to see a Republican president, and if I do, and if I'm in Congress, I promise you I will make her or him be responsive to the people's house when they have legitimate requests for documents.
You know, I think if it's not apparent now to folks who consider them devout partisans, either Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, to perhaps think about the imperial presidency as having become far too imperious, and time for a little modest rollback of power. Congressman, we know you'll be working hard in that direction. We appreciate your time and wish you luck.
Thank you, Lou.
Congressman
Yes, sir.
Trey Gowdy. Time now for a look at our online poll results. We ask whether you believe that most Americans are eager to simply see the clock run out on Barack Obama's presidency. 91% said that you would allow as how that would be just fine with you. A yes vote. Be sure to vote in tonight's poll. Do you believe that either political party adequately represents your personal values and beliefs and views? Cast your vote at LouDobbs.com.